Everything you've been told about playing it safe with your money is actually the reason you're not getting ahead. You followed the rules, you saved, you avoided risks, and yet, you're still watching your bank account barely move while inflation eats your progress. Today, I'm showing you why the safest advice in the world is a financial trap and the one shift you need to make to actually build wealth. Picture this. It's a Tuesday afternoon. You just got off a call with HR. They told you that you're getting a raise, a good one, actually, 4%, maybe even 5%. You hang up the phone, and for about 30 seconds, something genuinely feels different. You feel like you're finally getting somewhere. Then you sit back down at your desk, you open your banking app, and somehow, that feeling just dissolves. Because the math is already doing itself in your head. Rent went up in January. Car insurance went up in March. And that grocery run last weekend cost you $43 for things that used to cost $28. The raise hasn't even hit your account yet, and it's already gone. Not spent, just gone. Absorbed. And so you close the app, go back to your inbox, and quietly accept that this is just how it works. Right? My name is Ely, and I spend way too much time thinking about how people in the United States experience money psychologically. If you're someone who earns a normal income, maybe even more than you used to, but still doesn't feel financially secure, hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Because the stuff we're going to talk about today doesn't get covered in most finance content, and it should. Here's the thing. Most financial advice operates on the assumption that the problem is information. That if people just knew more, knew the right accounts to open, the right percentages to save, the right funds to invest in, the stress would go away. And sure, some of that stuff matters. But there's a massive gap between knowing what to do and actually feeling better about money. And that gap? It's almost entirely psychological. It's built out of assumptions, habits, and invisible pressures that most people never stop to examine. So let's talk about one of the biggest traps in personal finance. One that sounds completely reasonable on the surface. One that gets repeated by parents, coworkers, financial bloggers, and bank representatives everywhere. It's this idea, just be safe. Keep your money in a savings account. Don't take risks. Live below your means. Build your emergency fund. Don't touch your investments. Stay conservative. Now look, none of that is wrong, exactly. The problem isn't the advice itself. The problem is what happens when people follow it in a country where the cost of living moves faster than their wages, where healthcare costs can wipe out years of savings in a single hospital visit, and where this safe path has quietly become a treadmill that keeps moving faster than most people can walk. Here's what most people don't realize. In the US, the financial system wasn't designed with the average earner in mind. It was designed around the assumption that you'd earn more, spend more, and slowly build wealth through decades of compounding. But that model has a serious flaw when you factor in what's actually happening to middle-income households right now. According to the Federal Reserve's 2023 survey of consumer finances, the median American family has a net worth of around $192,000. But strip out home equity, and that number drops dramatically. Meanwhile, a report from the American Psychological Association consistently ranks money as the top source of stress for Americans year after year. Not relationships, not health, money. And here's the part that should stop you cold. That stress doesn't scale down when income goes up. People earning $75,000 a year report nearly the same financial anxiety as people earning $50,000. And people earning $100,000? They often feel just as stretched. The number changes. The feeling doesn't. Why? Because of something psychologists call the hedonic treadmill, and honestly, it's one of the most quietly destructive forces in American financial life. The hedonic treadmill works like this. When your income increases, your expectations increase with it. Your standard of living shifts. What felt like a treat becomes a baseline. What felt like a luxury becomes a necessity. You move to a better apartment because you can afford it now. You upgrade your car. You eat out a little more. You buy the name brand version instead of the store brand. None of these decisions feel reckless. They feel earned. They feel like progress. But what they're actually doing is resetting your financial floor upward. And now that floor requires more money just to maintain. This is where it gets interesting. There's actually a term for this in behavioral economics, lifestyle inflation. And it doesn't just affect people who are careless with money. It especially targets people who are responsible, Because responsible people feel like they've earned the right to spend a little more once they've earned a little more. It's a reward mechanism. It's completely human. And it is absolutely relentless. Think about someone. Let's call him Marcus. Marcus is 31, lives in Atlanta, earns about $68,000 a year working in project management. He got a raise last year, moved to a nicer apartment because rent in his old building went up anyway, and his new place is only $200 more per month. He drives a used car with a $320 monthly payment. He pays $210 a month for health insurance through his employer. He has about $1,100 in savings, which he's proud of because it took him 8 months to get there. He contributes 6% to his 401k because his company matches up to 6%. On paper, Marcus looks like he's doing everything right. He's saving, he's contributing, he's not reckless. But Marcus hasn't had more than $1,200 in his checking account at any point in the last 2 years. A single car repair almost wiped him out last spring. And every month, there's this low-grade panic in the background. Not crisis level, just a constant, dull hum of financial dread. The kind that makes you avoid looking at your bank account on a Sunday. The kind that makes a root canal feel financially catastrophic even though you have insurance. Marcus isn't doing anything wrong, but he's been told to play it safe, and playing it safe has kept him exactly where he started, stable on the surface, anxious underneath. Now you might be thinking, okay, but isn't that just what it means to be a regular person with a regular income? Isn't that just life? And here's where we have to be honest about something uncomfortable. For a lot of Americans, yes, that is just life. The median household income in the U.S. is around $74,000 according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. In a city like Austin, Denver, or Miami, that income puts you in a position where you're spending somewhere between 35 and 50% of your take-home pay on housing alone. Add transportation, because most of the country isn't walkable, and you're easily looking at 55 to 65% of your income locked into 2 line items before you've bought a single meal or paid a single medical copay. In that environment, playing it safe isn't a strategy. It's just treading water while quietly hoping nothing goes wrong. Here's the thing about the safe financial advice most people receive. It was written for a different era. It was written when a median income actually covered median expenses with room to spare. It was written when a pension covered retirement, when healthcare didn't cost a family $22,000 a year in premiums and out-of-pocket costs combined. And when the gap between wage growth and asset price growth wasn't the size of the Grand Canyon. The advice didn't change. The economy did. So what's actually happening psychologically when people follow safe advice and still feel financially stuck? A few things. First, there's something called scarcity mindset, a concept extensively studied by behavioral economist Sindel Mullainathan and psychologist Eldar Shaffer. Their research shows that when people feel financially constrained, it consumes cognitive bandwidth. It literally narrows thinking. You become better at managing small, immediate problems, stretching a dollar, finding the cheapest option, but worse at long-term planning. Not because you're not smart, because your brain is overloaded managing the present. This is why the advice to just think long-term or trust the process lands so badly for people who are genuinely stressed. Long-term thinking is a cognitive luxury. And when your bandwidth is eaten up by today's expenses, tomorrow's strategy becomes almost inaccessible. Second, there's the comparison trap. In the United States specifically, financial comparison is relentless. Social media amplifies it. The visible markers of financial success, the car, the vacation, the kitchen renovation, are everywhere. And the research on social comparison theory, going back to Leon Festinger in the 1950s and confirmed by dozens of studies since, shows that people don't measure their financial well-being in absolute terms. They measure it relative to their reference group. So if everyone in your workplace or neighborhood seems to be driving newer cars, taking more vacations, buying homes, even if none of them can actually afford it either, you feel like you're falling behind. And that feeling drives spending decisions that have nothing to do with your actual financial goals. This is why keeping up appearances is such a financially destructive force in the U.S. Not because people are shallow, but because the brain is genuinely wired to care about social standing. It's survival instinct applied to a world of Instagram stories and neighborhood Facebook groups. Third, and this one is subtle, There's the identity cost of financial change. When people make significant lifestyle adjustments, it often feels like losing something. Not just a streaming subscription or a dinner out. It feels like losing a version of themselves. The person who can take their family out on a Friday night. The person who doesn't have to worry about the price tag. The person who has their act together. Financial behavior is deeply tied to identity, and identity is one of the hardest things to change. This is why telling someone to just cut expenses is almost useless advice. It's not that they don't know what expenses exist. It's that changing those expenses means confronting who they think they are and who they're afraid of becoming. That's not a budgeting problem. That's a psychology problem. Now, let's talk about what actually moves the needle, because this isn't just about naming the trap. It's about finding a way out that doesn't require you to be a different kind of person. The first shift is what we might call recalibrating your financial baseline. Instead of asking, what do I need to cut? Start asking, what does security actually feel like to me in dollar terms? Most people have never answered that question concretely. They know they want to feel better about money, but they haven't defined what better means in a measurable way. For some people, security feels like 3 months of expenses in a liquid account. For others, it's a specific emergency fund number, say $8,000, that covers a car breakdown, a medical bill, and a month of rent simultaneously. Get concrete. Write it down. When your brain has a clear, defined target, it stops generating ambient anxiety and starts generating direction. The second shift is learning to separate financial decisions from identity decisions. This takes practice, but it starts with recognizing that choosing the $12 wine instead of the $28 wine at dinner doesn't make you someone who can't afford nice things. It makes you someone who is choosing where their money goes. That's not a downgrade. That's agency. The third shift is understanding the difference between visible safety and actual safety. The safe financial advice, the savings account, the emergency fund, the conservative approach, those things provide visible safety. They make you feel like you're doing the right thing. But visible safety and actual financial progress are not the same thing. Inflation has averaged around 3.8% over the last 3 years. A high-yield savings account earning 4.5% is barely keeping pace, not building wealth. The people who are actually getting ahead financially aren't just saving. They're making their money work harder than the rate of inflation. That doesn't mean reckless speculation. It means being intentional and a little less passive. And the fourth shift, maybe the most important one, is to stop trying to solve a psychological problem with a financial tool. If your money anxiety is rooted in comparison, a budget won't fix it. If it's rooted in identity, a new savings app won't fix it. You have to address the root. That might mean being more honest about what you're comparing yourself to and why. It might mean having a direct conversation with yourself about what financial security actually requires versus what you think it requires to feel okay in front of other people. Here's the quiet truth underneath all of this. The safe advice isn't wrong because saving is bad. It's a trap because it creates the illusion of progress without actually requiring you to examine the forces that are quietly undoing that progress every single month. Lifestyle inflation, scarcity mindset, social comparison, identity anchoring. These aren't character flaws. They're predictable human responses to living in a specific economic environment. And the first step to navigating them isn't discipline. It's awareness. Marcus, from Atlanta, doesn't need to earn more money to feel financially different. He needs to understand what's happening to the money he already has, psychologically and mathematically, and make 1 or 2 intentional decisions based on that understanding, not based on what financial safety is supposed to look like from the outside. The raise didn't feel like enough because the system absorbed it. And the system will keep absorbing whatever you throw at it until you decide to operate with intention instead of inertia. That's the shift. Not a portfolio. Not a side hustle. Not a specific savings rate. A decision to stop letting the default settings of American consumer life make your financial choices for you, and start making them yourself, with your actual goals in mind. That's it for today. If this hit close to home, share it with someone who needs to hear it. I'll see you in the next one.